Senator Luján will be next, followed by Senator Marshall, Senator Warnock, Senator Smith, Senator Young, and Senator Welch.
And let me say again, Mr. Chairman, this is a matter of such importance. A number of my colleagues would like a second round, and I think it would be important to offer, say, a modest amount of additional time to get into this on both sides. I know I have some questions, but I want my colleagues to have the opportunity to raise their concerns as well.
Well, I've said, as I have indicated to you, Senator Wyden, I'm not going to do a second round. I have been very generous with the senators. I think almost every single senator has had 7 minutes at least. And I will give you a second, as is our practice between the two of us.
I'll then divide my time up with my colleagues.
Okay, you are welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Senator Luján.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kennedy, when we met, you stated to me that it is not your goal to take away programs that work for Americans. Do you stand by that statement?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many Americans rely on Medicaid?
It's about 72 million plus the 7 million kids who are on chips.
Appreciate that, 72 million. Yes or no, is it important that expectant mothers and newborns have access to health coverage? Is it important that expectant mothers and newborns have access to health coverage?
Absolutely, Senator.
Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many babies born in this country are covered through Medicaid?
I would guess, I don't know the answer, I would guess about 30 million.
I have it, Mr. Kennedy. About 41% or 1.4 million babies births are financed by Medicaid, according to the National Center for Health Statistics. Yes or no, do you believe that Medicaid is a critical program?
I believe that Medicaid is a critical program, but that it's not working as well as it ought to be. And President Trump has asked me to make it work better, that most Americans are not happy with it. The premiums are too high, the deductibles are too high, and everybody's getting sicker. Too much money is going to the insurance industry.
I have a series of yes or no questions. They're pretty simple. Because you heard we're not going to get a second round of questions, I ask for your indulgence to be able to get through them yes or no. In New Mexico, as you know, Medicaid is often measured state by state. It might surprise you if you look at some of those surveys. In New Mexico, the response was 90% of New Mexicans on Medicaid report satisfaction getting care, 80% getting specialist care, 85% getting urgent care, 95% ease of filings out of focus. Not to pick on any one of my colleagues, but in Louisiana, 86% of people on Medicaid are satisfied with their interactions. 83% are satisfied getting care. 85% are satisfied getting specialized care. 82% getting urgent care. I can go on state by state, but we don't have the time today. Yes or no, do you support cutting Medicaid or reducing, and especially in an area where you and I spoke about with the federal investment in Medicaid, which is known as FMAP?
President Trump has not told me to that he wants to cut Medicaid. He's told me to make it better.
Do you support cutting, yes or no? Let me ask you this way, since it's only about President Trump.
I support making it better, Senator.
If President Trump asked you to cut Medicaid, will you do it?
Oh, it's not up to me to cut Medicaid. It would be up to Congress. And
you don't
I'm going to work. I'm going to work.
Mr. Kennedy, you don't want to answer? I'll move on. Do you know how many states will end? Mr. Chairman, if I may pause my time. So I understand that people are getting asked to leave if they stand up with signs, but there's a lot of other as well, Mr. Chairman. So it needs to be extended to everyone. As Mr. Kennedy said, we should respect each other when we have a difference of opinion. We're just trying to do our jobs here and trying to ask questions. That's all. And that's all I'm doing with Mr. Kennedy, folks. So I just hope that we can.
Senator Luján, you are right, and I ask the audience to please be respectful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that very much. Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many states will end their Medicaid expansion if the federal share of Medicaid drops?
Well, there's 40 states that have signed on to the expansion. So,
It's a smaller number. So it's 9 states would quickly have to end their expansion because of the laws that they have. That's about 4 million folks across the country. And in New Mexico, Iowa, and Idaho, they have triggers that it would immediately have to go into effect if, in fact, that gets cut. The reason I'm asking those questions is there's been a lot of chatter and conversations around Medicaid. Now, I agree we can always do better, and we must be doing better in America. But Medicaid has been shown to improve health outcomes, including mortality, quality of life, and access to preventative care as well. And there's some areas, Mr. Kennedy, that you and I touched on specific to Native American communities. One of the concerns that I have are these programs matter to folks. You shared your passion about caring for folks. I believed that passion. My question in this area is, as you know, when folks are doing research and they're going to check to see if medicine works on someone, if they're not included in that trial, it often doesn't help them. That's what all the evidence shows. So what are you going to do when programs are eliminated to require the inclusion of Native Americans in clinical trials when it comes to life-saving medicine?
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that there's Native Americans in clinical trials. As I said to you when I visited your office, I spent 20% of my career working on Native issues. My family's been deeply involved with them. My father and uncle were big critics of the Indian Health Service, the failure to deliver good health results or health care on the reservations. I'm going to bring a Native in for the first time in history into my central office, that all the major decisions in my office will be that he will have it. We've already interviewed a candidate, a very, very good candidate, will have direct impact on all the major offices. One of my priorities is to improve.
I appreciate that. I have a follow-up in that space specifically. Will you commit to finalizing the congressionally mandated FDA guidance to increase clinical trial diversity?
Just repeat that again. I'm sorry.
Will you commit to finalizing the congressionally mandated FDA guidance to increasing clinical trial diversity?
Yes.
I appreciate that. Will you commit to reinstating all of the pages that were eliminated and people that were fired from this administration that have this responsibility?
I cannot commit to that because I don't know who they are.
Well, there's
I'll
some
commit
folks out
to
there
working with you to make sure those positions are adequately staffed.
I will follow up in writing in those specific areas because I think there's some commonality here, but answers matter. And so I'd like to get those as timely as possible. The last thing, Mr. Chairman, that I'll say is one of the conversations I had last before this hearing was with a family that I've been working with to work with my Republican colleagues when it comes to autism and federal programs and making a difference in these families' lives and this little girl's life. What I'm asking now, Mr. Chairman, is unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from Autism Speaks titled, quote, "Do Vaccines Cause Autism?" End quote. And I'll note that the first sentence states, quote, "Vaccines do not cause autism," end quote. Thank you. I yield back.
Without objection. And before we move on, we've had a request from several quarters for a quick restroom break. We will take a 5-minute recess. I'm sorry to those remaining 5 or 6 senators who must wait a few minutes.